Well, hello, friends, and thank you for joining me on the Monday edition of the Daily Connection. It's great when we start the week off on Sunday celebrating who Jesus is, understanding His Word, teaching His Word, hopefully submitting to and obeying His Word. And then we start our work week off in the Word of God as well. And I pray that you make the Daily Connection an early start, like at the beginning of your day. That way the Word of God is getting into your mind, you're getting it into your heart, you're working through it throughout the day. And if you're like me, rarely do I ever come away from time in the Word that there's not a principle that I need to apply, there's not a command I need to obey, so that I can begin immediately working on that. And trust me, if you get a principle or you get a command and you then go to your workplace or your school, God's going to provide opportunity, or God's going to allow the test to come to make sure that you're doing it correctly, or make sure that you're submitting to His will. So it's great to start the day off in the Word of God so that we can get the Word of God into us. And speaking of starting off, we've got a brand new series, Why We Need the Word of God. And we're going to be looking at James chapter 1 this week, just 3 verses, 19, 20, and 21. But they're profound verses in terms of how we should respond to the Word of God. Starting off here in verse 19 where James says, "My dear brothers and sisters, understand this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger." Now, we can take that verse and make a generalized principle out of it. And when I mean generalized, I don't mean generalized in terms of the foundation of the principle. I mean generalized in terms of the application of the principle. We can put it into any context whereby we're interacting with someone and they're talking to us. And we can say, hey, in that case, we need to listen. We need to be slow to respond. And we need to be even slower to get angry. Let our emotions well up in us. But in this context, if we put verse 19 and following back into the broader context of chapter 1, it would seem that James is talking specifically about our attitude toward the Word of God. For instance, look back at verse 18. Let's do verse 19 because I think it goes to it as well. "Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. By His own choice He gave us birth by the word of truth, so that we would be a kind of first fruits of His creatures." Now, you might say, well, that's in that first section of chapter 1, Brent. That's not, it's clearly a second section starting here because there's a segment or a separator phrase there, but that's not necessarily true. And I think James is still focused on the Word of God. By the point, verse 18, by the word of truth, He's given us new birth. And now we are in a position where we should be able to respond to the word of truth. So we come to verse 19, and let's focus then how we apply that to how we respond to the Word of God. First of all, the word quick to listen. The word quick there could imply, that's like a literal translation, but really the idea being implied there is eager. Quick doesn't mean like quick as in terms of how fast I respond to something. It's meaning more, I should be eager to listen. And we should be. That when it comes to learning the Word of God, we should be eager to receive that Word. We should be eager to understand that Word. And in a lot of cases, that means we submit ourselves to a teacher who, through many, many years of study and through careful being trained in some sort of a seminary context, they understand the Word of God accurately. I should be eager to position myself under them so that I can hear the Word of God accurately and of course, then apply it faithfully. But James says, first of all, we should be eager to hear the Word of God. Secondly, we should be slow to speak. And that in this context, that would probably mean that as I'm listening to this one teach or instruct, I'm not thinking ahead, trying to figure out how I'm going to respond to something, what piffy little statement I might come up with, or what point of clarification I might want to try to make to show that, hey, I know what we're talking about here, or hey, I understand this. James said, no, we should be slow to speak to that. And even for a teacher of the Scriptures, we should be slow to speak as well, because those who teach the Word will incur double judgment. And so we should make sure that when we do speak, it's a careful speech, it's a calculated speech, and it's a speech that's been informed by the Word of God. We are presenting it accurately. And then kind of an odd statement, slow to get angry. And some translations even go on to say slower to get angry. Which if we put it back within the context of I'm eager to hear the Word, I'm submitting underneath someone to teach me the Word, so I'm not speaking it, I'm just listening. And now I'm supposed to be slow to get angry, Brent? That doesn't make any sense at all. Well, it does in the sense of if that one is teaching something that is in direct conflict with a current lifestyle pattern, if it's in direct conflict with a deeply held belief about something, then my knee-jerk reaction to that might be that I get angry about that because I don't want that lifestyle challenged. or I don't want that deeply held belief confronted. I want to hold on to it because I'm selfish. You know, anger here most likely is not talking about righteous anger, because in the very next verse he says, human anger does not accomplish God's righteousness. It's most likely talking about a self-centered anger, an anger that is rooted solely in how I feel about something. James says, man, we got to make sure we don't allow ourselves to get to that place. It kind of makes me think about what Paul says in Galatians chapter 4. He's talking to the church at Galatia, and he's been going through some of the things that they needed to hear, and he says this, so then, have I become your enemy because I told you the truth? That basically says, hey, so are you mad at me because I'm telling you the truth? Are you disappointed with me because what I'm saying is not what your ears want to hear? You want to have them tickled? And you've got people who are trying to do that, but yet I'm speaking the truth to you like a loving father, and now suddenly you're mad at me? James said that shouldn't be the way we come to the Word of God. That shouldn't be the way we receive the Word of God, and it certainly must not be the way we respond to the Word of God. We should respond eagerly and excitedly about what we're hearing, what we're discovering, what we're learning, both about the Word of God and now about ourselves, and then respond obediently and submissively in putting that Word into practice. Why do we need the Word of God? Because we need our minds renewed, Romans 12:2. Why do we need the Word of God? Because the Word of God is the means to salvation. It's also, sufficient for rebuking, correcting, for training in righteousness, 2 Timothy 3:16 and 17. So we need the Word of God. That means we need to be eager to hear it. We need to be slow to speak regarding it. We just need to listen carefully. And when we respond, make sure it's very calculated. And number 3, we need to submit obediently to what it says. So let's start today. Let's start right now. As you're hearing this word, you're studying this word, make sure you receive that word with excitement and enthusiasm that you're hearing the Word of God. Secondly, make sure you submit to that Word of God because it is the Word of God, and put it into practice. And of course, when we do that, inevitably it causes us to live sent.